Okay, so we will start now. So first and foremost, greetings and welcome everyone for joining today's webinar. Firstly, I would like to honestly thank you. Thank everyone for this opportunity who joined us here today for today's webinar. Today, we will be discussing more on youth activism in political aspects, and we will focus on mainly the challenges and limitations that our youth will face in political aspects. We, MRA SISWA Youth Empowerment Department, are so excited to bring you this webinar. And we will not be alone, as we will be accompanied by three esteemed panelists who are very well known in youth activism. But before we move on, let me introduce myself. My name is Nur Eliza Tan. You can call me Ellie. I'm a final year undergraduate studying actuarial studies. In MRI SISWA, I'm part of the Corporate and External Relations Department. So to start up, let me just take a quick time and explain briefly on MRI SISWA. MRI SISWA is a student-led organization of the Malaysian Relief Agency, MRA. We are a humanitarian organization registered under the Trustee Act of 1952. We seek to cultivate the spirit of service among Malaysian students by achieving these few core missions. First, organize humanitarian missions which may encourage volunteerism and acts of giving among students. Second, train the members to be equipped with the right skills, knowledge, and mindsets to serve others in need. Raise awareness on the plight of underprivileged and marginalized communities in Malaysia and around the world. Lastly, our mission is also to encourage the values of altruism and ambition for change among students. We have a few different departments in MRA SISWA, which includes operations, strategic, programs and advocacy, and also SISWA empowerment. The team consists of 5 people, including Vice President Arman, Director Priya, and executives Farhana, Atira, and Rashvin. That actually wraps up our introduction about MRA SISWA and SISWA empowerment. Without further ado, let me introduce our special panelists for today. The first panelist is our youngest panelist for this webinar, and someone with tons of achievements at his young age. And he's none other than Mr. Kiran Raj Setiba. He's a 22-year-old Bachelor of Political Science student at USM, and he also co-founded Saya Bukan Pendatang and Malaysian Youth Local Council. Welcome, Mr. Kiran.
Hi everyone. Thank you for calling me as one of the guest speakers for today's webinar session. So yeah, I'm quite honored to be part of it.
You're welcome, Mr. Kiran. Our second panelist is a medical doctor who worked in South America before returning to serve in Malaysia. Someone who is passionate about healthcare, women empowerment, and human rights, and also the co-founder and vice president of MUDA, Dr. Tanusha Francis Xavier. Thank you, Dr. Tanusha, for joining us today.
Hello, hi Ali, hello everyone. Thank you for having me here. Hi Kiran, hi Mizi. Nice to see you all on a Saturday night.
Thank you. Okay, lastly, our last panelist, Mr. Tamizi Anwar. And Mr. Tamizi Anwar, as you can see, has a lot of achievements and contributions. We would like to thank all the panelists for taking time to attend this event. Thank you, Mr. Tamizi, as well for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and also my fellow friends, especially fellow panelists. Thanks for having us for tonight.
Thank you. Okay, for today's session, we actually highly recommend everyone to switch on your cameras. We would also like to remind everyone to stay mute to make sure the flow of the event goes smoothly. You can use the chat box if you would like to chat with us, but please refrain from using any harsh language and try to be more accepting and open throughout the session to maintain a safe space for everyone to interact. Also a reminder, make sure to stay throughout the event and fill the feedback forms at the end of the session in order to receive the e-certificate from us. The feedback forms will be sent in a chat box before the session ends. Right. Now, let's actually get into the questions. Is our panelists ready for the first question?
Yeah. Go
Yep.
ahead.
Okay. Okay. So, to our panelists, we all know that through active participation, young people are generally more empowered to play a vital role in their own development as well as that of their communities, helping them to learn vital life skills, develop knowledge on human rights and citizenship, and also to promote positive civic action. Hence, it would be interesting if our panelists could actually share their personal experience in youth activism and political life starting from a young age. For example, how long have you been involved? The types or the main factors of your involvement in politics. What encouraged you to join politics? Maybe we could start off with Mr. Kiran.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep. Okay. I thank once again to MRS for having me in this political webinar. So in terms of asking about my own experience, I've been involved in politics and youth activism for the past 4 years, I would say. Yeah, I joined a specific political party when I was 18. Post DE 14 lah, post DE 14. And what are the main factors that actually encouraged me to join politics and to contribute my part to the society in the nation was the politics itself lah. Because I felt that we the youths, we have the urge, we have the need that to change the traditional politics. You know, there has been always a narrative that the youths can't change a lot, and politics have always been a very taboo topic to talk among the youths. You know, so I wanted to change the narrative, and there were few societal issues that also made me to enter politics in such young age. And I was quite known at first for the activism and politics because of my own community issue when I voiced out for the matriculation issues, you know. Because in terms of matriculation, there has been like every year there will be some issues about the seat allocations and the quota systems in terms of education. So for that part, I've been acknowledged, and then that was the beginning part lah. That was the breaking point where I choose that I should interfere in politics so we can bring up the change. Because you need to have an action plan lah. It's not going to nothing gonna change a lot when you're just going to be talking and sharing the view, sharing the hashtags in social media. So we need to have an action plan so we can come up with solutions. And yeah, that's why I joined politics, and that is how I came to politics. Thank you.
I see. So, Mr. Kiran, you joined politics since a young age because of you see a gap in the society. There's a few societal issues, and because of that, it needs like somewhat of a push and action plan. That's very interesting. Thank you, Mr. Kiran. How about Dr. Tanusha? Would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So similar to Kiran, politics has always been something that I've been passionate about. But in my case, my story is a little different because from even at a very early age, I realized that there's not much room for women in politics in Malaysia, and especially at that, a women of a minority community. There's hardly any platforms for us as women, and especially women from minority community, to have a say. You know, if it's about joining a party, of course, it's as fast as filling up a form, right? But to actually have to make an impact, to have your voice heard, and so on. At that point in time, I did not see any platform that was available to me. So my activism, I guess the spark or the moment in time where it became more than just a passion, but when it translated into action, I guess, would be GE14. When I think pretty much the entire nation was in a way for the tsunami, many names for it. And we all, I'm pretty sure all of us here, we contributed in one way or another. It could have been all the way from campaigning door to door, or it could have been as simple as that you voted, right? So of course, all of us are extremely disillusioned when Langkah Syaritan happened. Like, I'm sure Mizi will have a lot more interesting things to share on this later, but that was definitely the spark when, even for us as Muda, that became the point in time where we're like, you know what, why are we forever, working to put others in power, and then just because they decided to change their mind or to fulfill their selfish ambitions at the expense of the people's mandate, at the expense of the party, at the expense of the sacrifices of so many. So why are we continuously doing this in this cycle? Why not we just, form a platform of our own? And at that point in time, Mizi is here representing Leeds, but he's also a co-founder. And at that point in time, our discussions and all was that, like, it's okay even if this party doesn't get much response, but at least we take a stance and we create a platform. But of course, the response has been very, very encouraging from the get-go. So that's a little bit about my short journey in politics thus far.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Tanisha. That was actually really empowering to hear that you actually you actually found out that there is not much of a platform for women in politics, especially from the minority, and that, yeah, your entire journey is just wow. Thank you for sharing. How about Mr. Tarmizi? I'm sure you have a lot to share.
Thank you so much, Ali, and also Tanusha, and also Kiran. So tonight, so regarding the question, why I joined politics, the first one because of I was broken in love. so so it makes me feel what we call it empty. Okay? Makes me empty, and I need something. I need to do something. It might sound like very personal, but I think it teach me a lot, right? How you to survive from your what struggle, from your struggles, and the that just what we call it as one of the story lah. But there is important story or history why I begin with. When I was students or when I was studying in University Putra Malaysia, I one of the deputy president for the residential college. For the residential college, so that means the students committee in the residential college. It might sound very small compared to MPP or compared to Majlis Perwakilan Mahasiswa, right? So because we are only at the residential college, but there is one important moment when, as a deputy president on that time, I do remember when my principal of college, that means the lecturer who appointed as a principal to manage the college, renovate the college house. Okay, that means the principal house, right? So they use 15,000 ringgit, 15,000 ringgit only to buy Langsi. Okay, only to buy Langsi. It sounds so ridiculous, but it's happened. Okay, it's happened. And when I got that information and I got that news, because we as a student at that time, we want to organize a lot of programs, but they said, oh, we have a very limited money. We have a very limited money of funding. So that's made me feel so bad, and I was joining and engaged with this kind of issue, which later there was a election campus in University Putra Malaysia on 2011, So we there is an incident and the glass broken election campus. So I was one of the students that to defend our election campus result. We wanted to revoke the decisions. And we have like 12 opposition one seat on that time, but they wanted to remove all of the oppositions. So there is a fight and struggle over there. So so that's one of the reasons, which I think it's very, very important. Just wanted to before I finish my words, I uh, for this round, I think one of the important key why you should involve with this kind of decision, because you have to understand whatever happen, okay, whatever happen, somebody who is policymaker, okay, your principal of the college, your university administrations, okay. So wherever you go, there is a system and management who will manage your policy or your life. You might feel like, oh no, not affected. But for instance, in university, you need to pay more fees, for instance. Because of why? Because of the administration decisions. So every single moment, when you think about uh, the effects and affected to our life, so I think it's really, really important to be part of the decision making processes, because otherwise you will only need to you will always need to follow whatever people do. And for the I think that just to start with why you should be uh, participate in decision making processes. All right, sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mizi. That was a really interesting answer, because from what I got from you is because it is important to be part of the decision-making process, because at the end of the day, it also affects you. It may not affect directly, maybe indirectly, but yeah, at the end of the day, we ourselves are the one that will suffer if anything goes wrong in the process. Thank you for that specific answer. Okay, let's move on to the second question. Okay, this question is for Dr. Tanisha. Dr. Tanisha, as a co-founder of Muda and also a woman, could you please share with us what are the challenges that women in Malaysia face today in terms of political participation?
All right. So as I've already mentioned previously, the first issue is platform itself. That is one of the reasons why we even decided to form a political party instead of just joining existing ones and trying to make a change. Because in most of the existing parties, if I can say all, they are, the women are confined to a women's wing. The original idea of having, the Sayap Wanita, the women's wing, was to create sort of like a training platform, an empowerment platform for women so that they could then become leaders of the party. And the same concept applied to the youth wings as well. But what we see today is that instead of empowering women and then, allowing them to become leaders of the party, they are then confined. Only perhaps the Ketua Wanita, the head of the wing, themselves would have a chance to become vocal or a handful. But otherwise, they don't really get to have a say in leadership decisions, the direction of the party, contesting, becoming candidates. We see this across all political parties. Of course, this has improved with time, but nowhere near where it should be. So that's one of the things that we immediately addressed, even as we decided to do this party, is that we're not going to have that in Muda. And we don't have women's wing or a youth wing, but everybody is included in a centralized process. And that is one of the things that has also enabled me to become vice president directly, instead of just being, let's say, a head of the women's wing and that's it, and I don't have a say in central decisions, for example. So that would be the first challenge, I believe, the platform itself, right? Then secondly, I feel that there is a lot of pressure and expectation put on female leaders. Very often, even in simple programs or forums that we do, and when I try to get other parties, or even within my own party, if I'm being honest, to have the female members to participate or to be included, very often the feedback from the men and so on is that, like, oh, but they can't really speak that well, or they are really good visionaries and so on, but they can't really speak in front of a camera, for example, and so on. And this is applicable. I get this feedback across the park, and even in parliament itself, where we are very quick to condemn the female parliamentarians, and to, if we are going to talk about, oh, is this person qualified enough to run for parliament, for example, and then they say, like, oh, but then can she really lead, can she really stand up against all of these people and make a difference? But then when you look at the quality of the male parliamentarians that we have today, and the rubbish that goes on in parliament, so how come, like, there's such a double standard in terms of qualification? There's not much that is expected from a male candidate other than perhaps having a boisterous voice, for example. But when it comes to women, there's like so many layers of it. Can you really lead? Can you handle conflict? Can you juggle your family roles and at the same time contribute to the party? Are you going to get pregnant during this process and not being able and be able to attend programs and so on? There's a lot more criteria, expectation that is put on a woman, unfairly so, I believe. And then I can go on forever on this, because this is something that I do all day, every day, right? Discussing these issues. So my third point, I think I will wrap up with this third point, is that lack of support. Lack of support from the family, from society as a whole, and in some cases from the party itself. So from family and society, family, the obvious thing, not many family members are keen to encourage the women in the family, especially young girls and so on, to be involved in politics because of the consequences, especially if you are in the opposition, because that comes along with police intimidation, that comes along with harassment, sexual harassment, being trolled online, all of that. And families tend to be reluctant to be open-minded enough to sort of encourage women to participate in politics. And on the other hand, politics is also very, very demanding. Meetings at odd hours, interstate travelings, and so on. Perhaps all this while with the pandemic, that wasn't really that big of an issue, but then now it is definitely something that is going to be expected of any leader or any person who's active in politics, right? And especially in our society in Malaysia, to expect parents, in fact, to be open-minded enough to let a young girl travel all over. You don't know where she's staying overnight, and so the patriarchal system that exists within our society, basically, to put it out there. And then of course society's restriction itself, like, what are you doing, like, like, who's to be frank, quite often when I have a controversial opinion on social media, and when I get trolled, the comment would be like, who's going to marry you if you're going to keep doing things like this, as if that is like the biggest concern of of my life. So yeah, that those are some of the challenges. Thank you for the question.
I see. Thank you. So from that, I could get that firstly, there's actually no platform for women to voice out anything. And then second, the pressure on female leaders. And then also lastly, the lack of support, mostly from society, like any society restrictions, or even from the family itself. Basically lack of support from people around them. Thank you very much for that answer, Dr. Tanisha. Let's move on to the next question. So our next question is for all of the panelists. And it is, can you guys share your views and thoughts about our current Malaysian youth involvement in politics, and why is it important for youth to be part of politics? Maybe Mr. Tamizi would like to go first.
Actually, Ali, I'm so sorry because I'm in what we call it in out of Kuala Lumpur, somewhere in village. I didn't hear properly the question just now because it's lagging. So can you just repeat a little bit so then I can get the actual questions?
What are your thoughts about our current Malaysian youth involvement in politics, and why do you think it's important for them to be part of politics?
Right, thank you so much, Ali. And I think that very good questions and fundamental questions actually, because some people see like, why you want to join politics? Okay, so you're still young, so you have to after you finish your study, you need to find your works, okay, and you have to earn your money, and later you have to pay back your loans. So and after that you have to marry. I mean, that's kind of questions that as an ordinary people or young in young ages they wanted to do in their life, which is it's not wrong, but you have to understand. I mentioned just now in the first round that the the reason is you have to participate in decision-making processes. You have to decide for yourself. Okay, you have to decide for yourself. You do not need to. You're not supposed to give the opportunity someone else who doesn't know what you need and what you want to do to decide for yourself. Just simply like that. For instance, you are interested to study in certain courses, or a particular course, and later someone come to you and said, "Hey, no, you are not supposed to take that course. You're supposed to take this course. You are not." For instance, I mean, of course, you have to see your capabilities, your results, everything. But then, simple like that. You just wake up in the morning, okay? What usually we think about, okay, what I want to do today, okay? Can you imagine someone come to you, okay, you have to bangun, go to the washroom, okay? Every single moment somebody will show you what to do. So it's not supposed to do like that. Okay, I give a simple example, but then we need to think critically how that particular examples can be implemented in bigger prospect, in bigger picture. For instance, like we want to buy something. Okay, we want to buy something, but then suddenly we have to pay the item that we want to buy. We have to pay more because of why? Because of the taxation, for instance. Okay, the taxations. So the taxation made by whom? Made by the government. Okay, the taxation system. Okay, so this kind of the reasons you have to think about. For instance, okay, can you imagine for you as a young people, okay, you are interested to do in certain things, but then your parent asks you to do another things. Okay? It can be implemented also from as a look in the perspective of citizen and also the government. Okay, so because the government doesn't know every single things. Okay? The government doesn't know every single things. You have to decide and you have to contribute your own thoughts to decide what is your journey and also what is your life. That's one. And I think the political current situation in Malaysia is actually quite interesting. Back then, on 2010, 2011, when I was in University Putra Malaysia, still studying, it's really hard to find an activist. Okay, it's really hard. Why I say because on that time Facebook just started. Okay, social media just started, so very limited of platform for youth to channel their interest and also to channel their thoughts and to speak. Whatever you see, you have to see like debates, competitions. Okay, So only this kind of platform that you can see how people or young people can speak and also very, very good and very strong opinions. Compared to today, you can see the progress. There is a progress. Okay, there is a progress. I mean, there are a lot of progress actually. So you can see a lot of people just speak through social media. I think that's really very interesting. Okay, very interesting, because in you can see how from social media it's affected the government policy. I give you a very simple example. Viviana, okay, in Sabah, she speak about the internet connections, okay, in Sabah. So you see how after that the incident, okay, the topic has been discussed in the parliaments. It's really important. Back years, it's really hard to see like this kind of issues, this kind of opportunity for young people to contribute and to influence the debates in parliament. So I think, of course, there are a lot of progress, and at the same time, there's still a lot of things that we need to do, because young people still have a very limited platform, and same like what Tanusha just said just now. But I think there is one principle as a young people you have to think about. I always share this with our fellow friends. As a young people, you have to grab, you have to take your own rights, you have to take your own space. Otherwise, you will not get the opportunity, okay, to speak about whatever, to speak about what you think it's right. Okay, because of why? Because the, not say older generation lah, but the senior generation will not give the opportunity to you. Because of why? Because they think like this is, okay, you're still young, okay, you still have a very limited knowledge, okay, limited informations, you do not know how to decide, you don't have experience, okay, this kind of reasons they give to you so that you can't speak up. Okay, so I think you have to grab it, you have to fight for yourself, and that means it's not about yourself only, but you speak about what you think it's right for our society. So that's, I think, the current political situations and also the challenges and so on. Thank you so much for this round.
Thank you. I guess you could say that the youth today have a little bit of an advantage with social media, where if they say anything and if it goes viral, maybe it will bring up something that maybe is looked as a gap in society. Thank you very much, Mr. Tamizi. Anyway, Mr. Kiran and Dr. Tanisha, would you guys like to add on to this question?
Yeah, because I actually resonate with our panelist Tarmizi's statement just now, because I feel that thanks to MCO, thanks to a very long MCO period that we had recently, that is why, that's one of the main factor why the youngsters, they got not to say about involvement, but in terms of awareness, yes, because I see due to the long MCO period, and there was most of the youths were working from home, and that was the period where we had the Sheraton move and all. So, and also we are living in a digital era, so every news is just in your fingertips. You just can get your information just like that. So that is why we have a lot of youngsters showing interest, and they are quite aware, because back in like 2 years back, when you compare the political awareness among the youths, it's quite hard to see the youngsters who are showing interest in terms of politics and all that. But now this involvement, I don't see much, but they are quite enthusiastic. They really have the genuine passion passion to show towards our political system. They want to change this. They want to bring up a very good change for the nation, but they are lacking of good guidance. And the mistake that has been done by most of the youngsters right now is they idealize a specific leader. They don't idealize the ideology, which I feel that this must be brought up to the public lah, especially the youth. They shouldn't be like okay, they shouldn't be like uh, supporting a specific leader just because okay, for an example, I support Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim just because he was jailed. So it's not supposed to be like that. You have to be in the struggle. To join the politics, you must know what is the struggles and what are your costs. Idealize the ideology first. Don't idealize the politicians. So that's something that I feel in terms of if the youths want to involve in Malaysian politics and they want to show they have genuine passion, means don't idealize politicians. That's why that is what I wanted to say. Yeah. Thank you for the question. And yeah.
Thank you. I actually do see eye to eye when you said I idolize the ideology, not the politician. Okay, that's actually really interesting. Dr. Tanisha, would you like to add to this question?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Kiran and Mizi have shared thus far. And to add on to that, like, I want to address why it is important for us as young people to be a part of politics. Like, I feel like the reason behind most of the disinterest among young people in politics is because we just see a bunch of old people, old men mostly, fighting there over nonsense, over racial issues, over religious issues. And it's just, we have better things to do with our life than to, you know, and follow their crap, right? To put it frankly. But we really do not have the option or the choice to tune up, to do something else, or to just ignore politics, because politics is not just about a handful of people in parliament. It affects everything in our life, everything from the way our university education is structured, our school education is structured. We saw this clearly during COVID, how poor leadership affected our lives completely, and was a mess, from ever-changing SOPs, and just a mess. Because we really need to grasp the fact that politics literally is in everything that affects us in our daily life, and we really do not have the option of saying that, like, okay, I'm not interested, because that is essentially saying that, oh, I don't care about whatever happens, you know, with my life. Issues that us young people are facing right now: job prospects, you know, whether we are talking about university graduates or skilled jobs, etc. The pay is horrible, the benefits are horrible, but at the same time we are also facing a ridiculous housing price issue that is going on at the same time. How it is impossible for us to get loans, the interests are really high, whether it's a car loan, whatever loan under the sun, you know, and we do not earn enough to be able to pay back. The quality of our life as a whole, as working individuals, for those of you all who are not yet working individuals, I think even from internships and so on, you can see what your life is going to look like. And it's not like we get to enjoy a good quality of life while we are working so hard. It's like you get treated like a machine, get paid for peanuts, not have, you know, not even the weekend off, pretty much a lot of overtime. And all of this is these decisions happen because of politics, because there's no one regulating that. And why is this not addressed? It's because the people who are in parliament are so old, are so disconnected from all of these issues, because the last time that they had to be in university or buy a house as a young working adult was maybe, like, I don't know, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, because they are so disconnected. They're not there representing our issues and our concerns. So that is the reason why I feel like we really need to be involved in politics and participate in that.
Actually, I really agree. I guess it has been currently there are many other more issues compared to the people that are actually making up the policies, they don't actually face it on first hand. And so they really don't understand unless the policymakers are actually kind of aware and also directly facing the issue. So with new era comes new issues. And I guess the youth's involvement would really help with anything that is considered as a gap in the Malaysian politics. Thank you, panelists, for your answers. Let's move on to the next question. So, back in July this year, Sarah Irdina, one of the youth activists in Malaysia, was said to be seditious and arrested. What are your personal thoughts on that issue, and where do you think the limits for youth activism in politics should be imposed? Who would like to start off with this question? Maybe
Kiran, if you,
Mizi, go ahead.
okay. Thank you so much, Ali, for the questions. I think it's important to know, as a citizen in general, and as a young people in specific, you have to. It's supposed how to say, okay, as a young people, okay, you have to be sure, okay, you have to be sure that if you want to speak something, and if you want to speak something right, okay, for your rights, okay, there is no harm for you, okay, supposed to be like that lah. So that means what I want to say is I totally disagree what happened to Sarah Irdina, because I think that's a very ridiculous when you just speak something, you just posted and tweeted, same like other people said and tweeted, but you the only one who got arrested and all those questions, interrogated. And I think this is a very ridiculous actions taken by the police, because I think this is just the way that you want to threatening people, okay, threatening people. I work with Suara Rakyat Malaysia, which one of the most important organizations who monitoring police abuse of power. Okay, and I was the coordinator to look into for 1.5 years, something like that, to monitor the death in police custody and also abuse of police power. We see many times, especially the authority using the police, okay, using the police to threatening, okay, to threatening the citizens. I think this is very wrong. Okay, we have to, as a citizen, you have a right under the constitutions, right to speak, okay, right to say something. So that means the laws in our country is supposed to make sure that every citizens must have safety space to speak something on what they want to look into our future and also our country directions. So what I want to say is, we have our constitutions, okay, we have our laws, and what happened to Sarah Irdina is actually it's very important to reflect who to reflect the situation in Malaysia, and also the current political situation in Malaysia. Because of why? Because if you want to speak something, okay, you have to make sure that you have a safe space. How you as a young people want to say something, and if you want to say something, suddenly you get threatened by the police. This is so wrong, and I think this is what we need to look into, and we have to reflect. And I just want to make sure that this will not be happen again. So what we need to do, we have to do something with our own willing and also with our own initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess it also goes back to the points earlier on in the previous questions, whereby there's like not enough platform for anyone to actually speak up especially when it's so easy to speak up nowadays. You can just post something and it might be controversial, and then a lot of people would not like it and receive comments about it. And so, yes, it also goes back to the platform. We don't have a safe platform. Thank you, Mr. Mizi. How about Mr. Kiran?
Yes, I do agree with Mrs. statement lah. We all were against Sarah Edina's arrest, and I do feel my personal thought on that arrest is it's just another police intimidation. So what we could, I mean, you guys asked about the limits, right, on youth activism. For me, there should be no limits imposed on youths when it comes to activism, because youths are the ones who actually they are the concern of the nation. You know, they take up something to the social media because they have the concern for the future of our nation. So these are the intimidation that we should avoid. And I think this is something happening only in Malaysia. Like the Asian countries have this kind of intimidation, I think. But in terms of like you see when the protest or any other political satire post has been posting around in social media in other countries, it's not being intimidated in this way lah. It's not the police are not treating this in this way. And yeah, I feel that my personal opinion is we shouldn't have any limits to be imposed. I do agree with all the statements that Miji came up just now. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Ms. Kiran. How about Dr. Tanisha?
Yeah, I feel that Kiran and Mizi have addressed all of the main points that need to be addressed when we're talking about this issue with regards to Sarah Edina. And to add on to what Mizi said about the fact that they singled out Sarah Edina, the police and law enforcement were very careful to make sure, because it wasn't just Sarah who tweeted about it. Mizi tweeted, I tweeted, probably Kiran shared as well, and so many others. There are even more hardcore activists who are used to going in and out of being arrested for activism and so on, but they were very careful to make sure that the individual that they chose was someone very young and a female, to make sure that that would be enough to scare everyone else, so that no matter what, because what they want is for us young people to feel like, oh my god, if they can go after her, a young girl, what more us, I better not, post anything about this or be involved in this in any way, because if they can arrest her, they can definitely come for me, right? And let's not forget, they did not just detain her, they also raided her home, took her accompanied by the police in a police vehicle to her home, and raided her room and in front of her relatives, and confiscated her devices. And the sole intention of this is to humiliate and to intimidate, so that the rest of us will be like, oh my god, does that mean that they're going to come to our homes? And in fact they did, right, Mizi? They showed up to my family's home in my hometown in Taiping, because I'm here in KL, but they went over there and things like that. And why are they doing all of this? It's because they know that young people, if we realize our true potential and our true strength, and we are not easily persuaded and swayed by all of these rhetorics, come election time, they're just going to play the religious card and the racial card and be like, okay, vote for me. Young people, we have like a better understanding of policies and of politics, and we are not easily going to get swayed by this. We're like, okay, we know what you have been doing and how much money you've been swindling and etc. No way I'm going to vote for you. And in fact, to add to share on with regards to intimidation, one of the main reason actually why Muda as a political party has not been approved yet by ROS is because apparently us, the co-founders, failed the security inspection. Meaning that, for whatever reason, it's not like Mizi and I are terrorists or something, right? But that's the reason. And they did not identify who's the individual or what is it that they are so worried about all of us. But just to put it out there, that this is the tool and the only tool that they have to use to confine young people to keep us quiet. So we can't play into their hands, basically.
Thank you, Dr. Tanisha, for your answer. I guess it's about police intimidation and them finding ways to scare us, but scare us youth, and they think that it will not allow us to be any more fiercer. How about we move on to the next question? Okay, the fourth question. This question is about your personal experiences. Can you please share some of the challenges that you faced throughout your involvement in politics? How about Mr. Kiran?
Hi, Ali. Thank you for the question. Yes, okay. In regards of challenges, yes, I do face few challenges lah. And the main challenges that I face is, one is my age factor. Second is my skin color. Because you see, in terms of skin color in Malaysia, even though we do have a lot of movement, we have youngsters, we have politicians who are involved in activism and so on, but our political landscape still evolves around race and religion. That's the main thing that has been going on all the way after independence, after our independence. So whenever they see someone who belongs to a minority community and they are coming forward in politics, they tend to come up with statements like quite actually they come to a statement like that the minority couldn't win the hearts of other voters, the Malay voters, the Chinese voters. So, and also the awareness we are lacking of. I think because of the awareness we are lacking of, because the Malays, they don't have the trust on a non-Muslim candidate to be their voice in the parliament or in the dole, and the Indians, they don't have the trust in the Malay candidates. So this is why we still have this kind of like the genuine young politicians who really wanted to create changes in the to our nation. Also, they face a lot of challenges. And second is my age lah. Since I'm too young, and they always ask me the same question that oh, why are you not studying, and why are you interested in doing this and all? Are you studying? So this kind of questions I do receive a lot. And third they'll be asking about my background lah, my parents' background, because most of the youngsters, most of the politicians, they think that I belong to a political background. That's why I'm here in politics and so on. But to be honest, I'm coming from a zero political background lah. My family doesn't have any political background actually. So yeah, and also other challenges is nepotism. Yeah, nepotism. Since I think every political party, they face this kind of things lah. Like newcomers like me, they face challenges like this. When the father or the mother, they will be already in the political party, and when they see a newcomer who is quite more have more potential than their own daughter or son, they tend to cause few problems to newcomers like me lah. So yeah, these are the few challenges that I face. Thank you for the game.
How about Mr. Tamizi? Any challenges you face?
Thank you so much, Ali. And I totally agree what Kiran said just now. That's a very real issue have been facing by many young people. I might share a little bit difference. I mean, not difference, almost the same, but then in the bigger perspective. The first is when we talk about politics in Malaysia. I totally agree with Kiran. He said about race and religion. So it has been normalized. Can you imagine the race and religion issue has been normalized? It's something like it's if you want to speak in if you want to participate in politics, it must be Malay. It must be Malay. Okay, because this is our land. Right? This is our homeland. Okay, so this is our soil, for instance, like our land is. So what they want to say is no, Malay, the soul, what we call it, sole community or the sole ethnic that own this property or this country, which is so wrong. I can say like this is so wrong. As a citizen, as a modern country, it's a modern country, you have to build up your image, and also you have to build up your philosophy is about the what being Malaysians. Okay, what being a Malaysians. So that means if you are Indian, if you are Chinese, or if you are Iban, Kandazan, any kind of ethnicity, we have to understand that this kind of people, they are also Malaysians. They are also Malaysians, and they have rights in this country. They pay tax. They was born in here. Okay, they were born in here. So these kind of questions we have to ask ourselves, and that's one thing. And I would like to also address another thing. It's about, of course, as a young ages, I think, for instance, I have been facing. I do remember Kiran said just now, "Hey, are you still young? You are not going to study." I just want to share my experience when I was still in UPM. I did my undergraduate course. I have been isolated from my classmate because of I joined politics. Because can you understand? Because I have a different opinions and different stance on certain issues. So I joined campus elections, campus politics, and there is one lecturer who are not stand with you, and he might have what we call it classical or mainstream idea, and so can you imagine you as a student, can you fight with your lecturer on that time? Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to fight, especially when your classmate know who gonna marks your paper. Okay. This shit thing happen in public university, until today still happen. So I think this is a very real issues that you have to. And the last one is, of course, as a young, you have to work. I have my own what we call it works. At the same time, I have to give my time to do my activisms, to join politics, to join activism. So you have to give your own time. I'm a married person, so I have also need to consider how to manage my time with my wife or with my family. So these kind of people. So one of, as you know, one of the biggest challenges is economic challenges lah. Money, you have to work, you don't have enough money. So how you want to talk about another issue, because at the same time you have no money lah. So that's the challenges, few challenges lah, that I have been facing, and even until today, I think that's also important to note that still happens, and we need to find a way to solve it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the answer. So far for the challenges from your involvement in politics, I'm getting from Mr. Kiran, age, skin color, nepotism, and from Mr. Tamizi, it's mostly the hierarchy that there is, especially in a university life, where your classmates and your lecturers don't agree with what you're doing, and you're constantly getting, how to say, sly looks, like they say, pandangan serong from your classmates and lecturers. How about Dr. Tamisha? Would you like to add on to this question?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm genuinely in awe of Kiran and Tarmizi for giving such honest answers to his questions. They didn't give a political answer, but they gave genuine answers of the challenges that we face as young people. And especially Kiran, who addressed race, which is undeniable. being a minority in Malaysia, and not just being minority, but being minority in a political climate where race and religion is the dominant issue, it gets very tricky and very difficult, because anything and everything that you say goes back to race. If you defend a certain issue, because even if it's environmental, somehow it gets twisted to, oh, the only reason that you are talking about this is because, said person that is affected is from your community, is Indian. Otherwise, you would not care. Or it would be like, why are you raising this environmental issue that is affecting this thing, but when it affected, let's say, the Malay community, you didn't say anything, even though the issue is completely irrelevant to race. And I do echo Mizi's point on economic challenges. I think this is something that is very unique to us young people, and young people who are trying to make a change, meaning that you're not corrupt. You're not being young leaders and having a garage with a Ferrari and whatever that we see on social media, right? So well, I don't get anything from the party, and neither does Mizi. We don't get a single cent. So it's not just about trying to kind of build your career and your income to support yourself, but at the same time, you are also actually coughing out your own money to support the activities of the organization, right? Because if you have meetings and so on, and you are the leader, takkan you tak belanja at least an air kan? Things like that. So that's where it gets quite difficult for a young person to be out there. And of course, even simple things like petrol to go for a meeting. At one point in time before the pandemic, I had weekly meetings in Putrajaya, and the commute back and forth and how much that adds up to toll and petrol, which is a very small thing maybe for like well-established people and so on, but for us young people, it's like it adds up, right? It adds up, and you're not getting to claim that anywhere. It's your money, right? So that, and of course, I think I've addressed the challenges that women face in politics already previously to this. So I think that's all from me.
Thank you, Dr. Tanisha, for that honest answer as well, especially when you said about the traveling fees, you pay toll, you pay gas. I think a lot of young people can resonate to that. And that's why most times they prefer online meeting like right now what we're doing, right? Okay. Actually up next, I do have a specific question for Mr. Kiran. Okay, Mr. Kiran, as the co-founder of MYLC, how did you generally come up with this idea? Maybe like your personal reasonings, and generally, what made you think of coming up with such an organization? Maybe you could share your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Okay, regarding Malaysian Youth Local Council, I came up with the idea because you see, normally people in Malaysia, most of them, they just focus on federal level politics and state level politics. They actually doesn't care about the existence of local council, and that is where you can see a lot of underlying corruptions going on. So when I had a very real experience like in my life, and when there was a local council, and normally local councillors appointments are based on it's all political appointments lah. It doesn't matter if the specific political party wins in the parliament means the members in the political party will get to be chosen as one of the appointed local councillors. It doesn't care. They do have the qualification. They do have the they don't even care about their potential and the qualification. They just give it up just like that. So this is why we wanted to start up this organization, and we wanted to spread awareness on local council to the people, because normally when there's any issues, like for example, there's always electricity cut in the for a specific time in your taman, means they don't know the people there who are living there, they actually don't know whom to tell their problems and all. They don't know who's their ali majlis for the specific zone and all. So they just bring the issue to the dole or the MP. But the real issue is they are not supposed to be responsible for this. The Ali Majlis should be responsible. But the people, they don't know who is Ali Majlis, and which Ali Majlis is for the specific group. So we wanted to create awareness. Second is the political appointments law. We actually, our organization,
The DBM I know the event. Now
sorry, someone interrupted. Okay, all right, okay. So yeah, in terms of political appointments that we actually, our organization is quite against it lah. We don't want to see. We wanted to have wanted to promote local council election, and also about women representation in local council. We never see. I think in my experience, when I go and meet the local councillors and all, I never see a women councillor at all. I think I've seen about 2 or 3 only. So it's said there's been a lot of gender discrimination, race discrimination, and also we wanted to address the salary of local councillor. Then you see the roles and responsibility of the local councillor. The workload is quite high, but the salary that they are being allocated is very less. And I know the salary varies among the states, but in average you just get about 1,400 or 1,600. Imagine a single family man who's like working, the only breadwinner in the family. 1,600 is not enough for them, and which this meager amount of salary leads to corruption. So there are a lot of underlying issues lah. There are a lot of underlying issues that we want to address through the organization in terms of local council. So that is why we wanted to start it off. So yeah, this kind of brief introduction lah about my organization. And yeah, guys, please go and follow MYLC in Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giran. So from that, I guess what made you found MYLC is roughly because of to create awareness, and also because of many issues that are out there, like racial discrimination, just for an example. Thank you, Mr. Kiran, for the answer. And also, everyone, don't forget to follow MYLC. Okay, next up, we do also have a specific question for Mr. Tamizi. Okay, Mr. Tamizi, as the project and operations manager at Lead Studies, could you please explain more about what Lead Study does and how it helps our youth for their self-development?
Thank you so much, Ali, for the questions. I think I was in Leeds I think since 2014 when it was founded. Okay, so until today I still with Lead Studies, or we call it as Institute for Leadership and Development Studies. And so mainly we're focusing on trainings, we're focusing on advocacy. So since 2014 we have trains, I think like hundreds young people on civic education, political trainings, and also economic trainings. So especially in we have like very prominent activities or prominent workshops we call as Sekolah Merdeka or Freedom Schools. So in Freedom School, we train about the political philosophy and the political economy. And we train, of course, even though we have a specific interest of political, what we call it, ideology, but we give a safe space and we try to bring the critical thinking types of activities, so that the participant can think clearly what the pro and contra if you do like this, if we do like this. So it's really important. For instance, and also we did teach about the taxations, we did teach about the policy, the public policy, how the government should develop a policy. Okay, the process of public policy making and so on. So that's the prominent workshop that we always do in Leeds, what we call it as a freedom schools. So we did also have a Malaysia Freedom Summit. This year we don't have, but since 2014 we never miss, but only this year because we have a very slight what we call it in terms of, because of the pandemic and so on, so we have a very careful in terms of implementing project. So the Malaysia Freedom Summit, we bring activists, various of background, activists, students, NGOs, politicians, lecturers or academicians, even practitioner from government side, from private side or private sector. So we bring together them to discuss about freedom in Malaysia in the perspective of religions, in the perspective of economic, in the perspective of academic, and also in the perspective of politics. So these kind of the themes that we bring together participants, students, and so on to speak up, to discuss, to debate about the issues. And I do believe if you want to progress our society, we have to be brave to talk about, to speak up about, and to debate about very critical issues in Malaysia, especially when we talk about freedoms in terms of this, under this kind of topics, or four topics or 4 themes. And another one is actually still we almost wrap up our projects. We engage with Young Parliamentary Caucus. So Young Parliamentary Caucus is actually the young MPs. First time has been selected. Oh, sorry, not selected, but have been elected as MPs, and also below 45. Because it's really hard to find below 40, even below 40, it's really hard to find MPs. Can you imagine in Malaysia? So what we have to, right, we have to adjust the age 45, so we still consider as a young. So what we do is we engage with the Young Parliamentary Caucus, I think around 10 MPs, and there are 10 MPs. We engage with them, and it's a bipartisan initiative. So that means it came from PKR, DAP, UMNO, PAS, and we have Adi Syari, and we have other from Sabah, we have Ati Joseph Kurob, we have Wabi Lukanisman from Sarawak. So all these MPs, so actually they sit together and they come together to speak and to discuss with public. So the young people, or we as a youth, can engage with them directly to discuss and to debate, to channel our thoughts and our ideas. And I think that's a very, very important. We have a same situation, we have a same ambitions to see young people, to contribute and to participate more in politics. It's not necessary to be in political party to involve in politics. We have to be sure like that, because in the bigger perspective of politics, that means it's a decision-making processes. If you involve with your own community, so that means you solve many problems and you participate in your own community. That's enough. Doesn't mean you have to participate in political party. Doesn't mean you have to involve with Muda, for instance, to participate or to speak up or to contribute something. No, you can be nobody, but still can contribute to the society. Okay, I think that's a very important questions that we need to think about regarding the question just now. So yeah. Last but not least, so LEAD are very interested to have you guys as one of the, if you guys interest to do what we call it internship. Even previously, we have several alumni who attended freedom schools, and later we connect them with international organizations so they can go travel abroad to attend courses, to attend workshops. Even I myself, I went to Germany 2 times in several countries because of my involvement with LEAD. So I think that's the opportunity if you engage with us, because as organizations, we have a lot of connections and we have a lot of networks internationally. So yeah, so that's the offer that we can share you guys, and hope that we can exchange the ideas and contribute more to our society. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Tamizi. I'm sure now we know a reason or two why you decided to start LEAD studies. And also thank you for that detailed explanation. I'm sure all of you participants here for this session today have a lot of questions. And that is why right now we will actually have a Q&A session. So we will post a link in the chat box here, and you can actually upload any questions that we like that you would like to ask, but please do keep in mind not to ask any sensitive or triggering questions, and please be mindful and respectful to others. But as for now, we do have a few questions from some of the participants for the panelists to answer. So we will share it on screen right now. I hope everyone can access the link. It's just been posted on in the chat box. I see we do have a few questions already. Okay, how about we start with one question? Priya, maybe you want to zoom in on the question that you choose? Okay, I see a question from Anonymous, which states, do you agree that students as young as 17 should be educated on the politics of their own country? Maybe even students as young as from high school students, secondary students. But in the question, as young as 17, what do our panelists think?
Yes, yes. They should be educated on politics when it comes to their own country. Yeah, they should be educated, because from there only we'll begin the political life. And now we have amended our country have amended the voting age to 18 years old. So it's better to let them know early about politics. And as I've mentioned earlier, that politics have always been seen as a taboo topic. So we have to break that taboo. And yeah, they should get educated about politics as early as possible lah.
As early as possible, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the voting, the new voting age right now. I think that it's also really important because let's say you are about to vote and you don't know anything about the politics and you're rushing to find out, then it's a little bit confusing for them, especially with a lot of things to like learn on the spot. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
They just have to know about the basics lah. No need to know about the hardcore politics and all. Just know the basics and get themselves informed about the current issues and so on. Yeah.
All right. Would Mr. Tamizi or Dr. Tanusha like to add on to this question?
Tanisha, you can go first if you want.
Okay, Ken. So I feel that for sure, political literacy, I think, is one of the biggest issues that we are facing in Malaysia. And this is very apparent, especially amongst rural voters in the rural areas and urban areas as well, but especially so in rural areas because I think they don't really have access. There's a lack of access to the information and that we tend to have access to in the urban areas, right? And this political literacy should start as early as possible. And by political literacy, and we don't mean understanding about the political parties that exist in Malaysia, but understanding what voting is about. You know, simulation in schools, maybe the election of the class monitor should be done in a democratic process. So, you know, whomever wants to run to become class monitor needs to give their own proposal. Like, okay, if I become class monitor, I will increase the recess time by 5 minutes. If I become class monitor, I'm going to lobby for, I don't know, co-curriculum activities to be held in the auditorium or something like that. But what this does is that it trains us to understand that, like, oh, I will elect an individual based on what are the policies that this individual wants to propose. And if, let's say, a bunch of students decide to form a party, essentially, to kind of get the same candidates voted in as class monitor or head prefect or something like that, then we will look at what all of them collectively want to propose. And what this trains young people, students especially, would be to understand the process itself. And this we do not see among adults. It would be great if we could do this for adults if they're open to learning, right? But this is something that if it could be done, it would be fantastic beyond belief, so that we can move past voting because this is the party that my father and grandfather voted for, or this is party because this party represents my race, and that's the end of it. Doesn't matter if they have not done a single thing for my community or for my, kampong. It doesn't matter because we don't have that mindset of looking at what they want to do.
Okay, is it okay to just continue a little bit?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Ali. So I just want to make sure something that very important statements. Democracy cannot work without democratic citizens. So that means if you want to make sure a proper I'm so sorry, my niece. So if you want to make sure a good democratic country, you have to make sure that, or what we call it, if you want to make sure a democracy working in your country, you have to make sure you educate your people or young people, especially in democracy knowledge. So I totally agree what our fellow panelists mentioned just now. So this is a very important things that we look into, especially young people. If they want to speak about politics, you have to be matured. Okay, in what way? In by educating ourselves about knowledge. Okay, about knowledge. So I think I stopped here just now because at the back so lousy, sorry, noisy. So, but I echo with our fellow panelists just now. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Misi. I really agree when you said to learn about politics, you have to be mature and you really have to equip yourself with any knowledge, especially on politics, but not too hardcore, as Mr. Kiran said. You just have to learn the basics. Right. Thank you, panelists, for your answers. We have 2 more questions to go. So the next one, in regards to the limit of activism, what are some general guidelines to avoid a problem with the law? Maybe Dr. Tanusha would like to go first.
I'm a bit of a sarcastic answer, but I don't think there is anything that you can do to avoid the problem with the law, unless perhaps if you, I don't know, move into a cave, for example. Because if their intention is to come after you because they believe that you are outspoken and you are championing something, or you're calling out a social injustice, or you're trying to do something different, if they mark you, they will find a reason under the sun to come after you. And there's nothing that you can do about it, precisely because of the way our system itself is structured, that they don't need an excuse to call you up. We've even had situations where a bunch of us gets called, and a person who was not even there at the protest also gets called, because they automatically assume like, oh, if this person and this person there, you also gang with them, for sure you are also there, so I just call you up for investigation, even though you are in a completely different state and not present at the protest at that point in time, just because they can. Or they might, like, okay, let's say someone here, like, okay, I don't want to get into trouble, but I believe in this cause, but I'm not going to like or tweet. Oh, but you were in that forum with Dr. Tanusha, kan? So you are probably associated as well, so I have a right to call you up for investigation. They can do that. So there really is no guideline to that at all, like, in my opinion. Maybe my fellow panelists will have something more constructive to say.
I guess there's really no clear way to slither across the general guidelines to like get yourself out of trouble with the law. How about Mr. Tamizi? Would you like to add on?
Okay, sure. Sure. I'm so happy to speak about these things. I think it's quite funny when Tanusha mentioned that things, but that's the real situations lah. But I would like to suggest on certain things, especially when you want to tweet something or you want to say something in social media. You can say something, but the interpretation, it's different things. Okay, so because sometimes when you speak something, you tweeted something, you write something, the people will interpret it differently. Okay, so that means you have to be careful with the words that you choose. If you want to say something that you what we call it, you shaki someone, mengeshaki someone, you cannot put the words that confirm that he did it or she did it. You cannot say like that. You have to play with the words, okay, because the law, okay, in terms of laws and also all of these things, they play with the words. Okay, so you have to be careful in terms of words. Okay, you cannot blame someone who are not, I mean, you have to do it properly lah. Not accuse someone easily, and that's one thing. Second thing is, you have to know your rights. Okay, you have to know your rights. You have to learn what is the limitation of police power. Okay, I know everyone here will feel something when you see police. Okay, it feel like, oh my God, there is a police, I have to be careful. Something like that, But ever have we think that what we have done until we have to think about that, or we have to feel like that? We never think about that, right? So because the authority, the government always, and also our culture seems like, oh, when we see police, so that means police, they have authority, they have power, they can catch us, they can arrest us, right? So we have to change that. We have to know the police limitation of power. So when we know the police limitation of power, so that means we know our rights. What police can do? What are the limitations that police can do? They cannot arrest you easily. They cannot, okay, suka-suka hati nak tangkap you. They cannot. They have to follow the laws. So that means you have to at least study a little bit about your rights, okay, in the constitutions and also certain laws. And also, you have to learn about the limitation of police power. Okay, but last but not least, I think that's also important to note that if we want to say something, okay, we have to say like relax lah, okay, not maki-maki, okay. So we have to make sure that, I mean, I don't want to teach how to write. No, it's not But what I want to say is, you have to choose your words properly, because if you want people to listen with your ideas, you have to write it properly. So at least people can understand, and also people can support you if something happened to you. Yes. Hey, last one. I'm so sorry. Another one. You have to engage. If you called by the police, for instance, you have to make sure you must reach with someone who know better about these things. For instance, lawyers. You have to consult with the lawyers. And don't just simply, when you got called by the police said, okay, come to police station, we want to meet you. And suddenly you just follow every single order. No, you have to ask your friends, your brother, your family, whoever know about laws. Okay, if you have friends who are studying laws, ask them, call them. If you know somebody lawyer, call them, ask them. Okay, don't go alone to the police station, for instance. Go with me. If you have opportunity, go with the lawyers. Okay, with lawyers or yeah, don't go alone lah. So then if you go alone, so they will intimidate you and so on. So yeah, that's my opinions. I hope that a little bit constructive and easy to understand. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Tamizi. How about Mr. Kiran? Would you like to add?
Yeah, actually, for me, in my perception is, in terms of activism, I don't have any limit. I just go all out because I resonate with the statement by our panelist, Ms. Tanusha, where she told that if they really want to catch you, means they will find any reason to just have you caught by the police and all. So I think I myself also I faced the same problem. Like I didn't even attend the protest, but still I received call from the police. And I was in another state. I was in Johor at that time, and I still received the call just because I was close with the few of the organizers and few of the participants lah. So yeah, I think when it comes to activism, you couldn't avoid a problem with the law. To be honest, but yeah, you can follow the guidelines that has been given by our panelists, Tarmiti here. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kiran.
Can I quickly add, please?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just want to address that what Mizi brought up is really, really important here. There may not be enough guidelines how to avoid, but if you do get into trouble with the law, then there's like an entire handbook of how to deal with this. So it's really, really important what Mizi said, even about, what you are not even obligated to answer the police officer's questions beyond your name and your address and your occupation or something like that. Those are things that are really, really important, and we can't get into that now because there's literally a lot of it, but it is really, really important. So please, if you at all get into trouble over this, like what Mizi said, reach out, to maybe to us, or to any of your friends, fellow activists who have experience in this and so on. That is an absolute must, because there's a whole bunch of things you need to do, guidelines for that, tips that we are accustomed to.
Thank you, Dr. Tanusha. I guess there's no clear guideline, but however, if you, to sum up what Mr. Tamizi said, firstly, if you were to, let's say, write about something on social media, number one, you do have to make sure you choose your words wisely. It all comes down to wordplay, how you put your words together, the sentence itself. You might be very cautious because they can do anything they want with your statement, whatever you posted. So number one is choose your words wisely. And the second one, it comes down to you actually understanding and knowing your rights. So for this part, you actually have to do some self-studying. So for example, any limitations of you as a Malaysian, as a citizen with the police. So like Dr. Tanusha said, it's a whole handbook. So do make sure you do know some general rights of yourself as a citizen. And third, lastly, make sure if you do get into trouble, get help from someone that knows better than you. For example, if you were to get called up by the police and asked to go to the station, do make sure you bring someone with you that has more knowledge, maybe a lawyer or even a family member that knows more. So that roughly sums up this question. We do have one more question. Last question. Am I right, Priya? Do we have one more question? Oh, right. So that will be our last question for our Q&A session, which actually wraps up our webinar today. Again, thank you so much, panelists, for such fruitful answers today. I think it's such a fruitful experience. Thank you very much once again for panelists and participants for making today's webinar merrier. Before we end the webinar, as usual, let's take a group photo and make sure for the participants, please fill out the feedback form before you leave the event. So hope everyone can turn on your cameras so we can have a group picture.